said that the people in the Parshas, in the end of Parshas, the Rabbi is saying that he sees that the heart of the people are bad, and therefore he is considering about destroying, erase, to wipe out the whole world. But we're lucky that he had one tzaddik, his family with 3 children, with their wives, and him and his wife. So that's giving us 8 people. And so he said that, okay, I'll save them. He told them to build a teva, took him to build a teva 120 years, but that's a question why that takes so long. I don't know if we'll get into that. Anyway, then finally he got into the teva, and the people threatened that they will kill him, they'll destroy the teva. So Hashem showed them that he's boss. They couldn't do anything. And they were for 111 days in the teva, and in the teva now physically it doesn't make sense how all the animals in the world, with the birds, not fish, but the birds and kosher animals and non-kosher animals were all in the teva. And remember, it wasn't such a big teva. It was in our 300 ames is 150 meters. By 50 ames means 25. It's 150 by 25 meters. One floor in top is for the people living there, maybe the storage of the food. Then they had the second floor with the animals. So it's in one floor, put in all the animals of the world in there. And this thing also had to put the shadim in there, but that's not understood. I said, if the fish didn't have to go in there, why the shadim have to go in there? After 111 days, when he finally comes out, he brings a korban to the Eibishter. Then he gets shiker and Chom messes him up. And then we have the story of Nimrei, but then we have the story about the Tower of Babel. And the people build the Tower of Babel, and Hashem destroyed that also. Not in such a terrible way like the Mabel. He just spread them all everywhere. That is the main punishment. And after the Mabel, Hashem gave an oath that he'll never bring a Mabel and destroy the whole world again. Okay, so let's think a second. What's happening here? See, in Pshat, we're learning it like the Rabbi saw that the people, he gave them free choice, so they didn't behave. They were Malicham was bad. They were killing. They were robbing, robbery, etc. So therefore, he decided he has to destroy them. The Deira Flogger wasn't so bad. They were very friendly to each other. Had Tzadini from be nice to each other, the war, but they were against the Eibishter. That's why Hashem didn't kill them. But again, we start the idea of looking, first of all, the idea of, and another interesting thing, it says that why is the Mabel called Mei Neach, the water of Neach? Because really, the Zohar says we are faulting a little bit Neach that he didn't daven for them enough. Didn't daven enough for the Rishonim, like Avraham Avinu davened for Sdeim. So in other words, we're faulting a little bit Neach. So the question is, why the Neach didn't daven? What cost him money to daven? He's building a table for 120 years. The Shiri could daven for them, save himself some work. So why Taka didn't daven? I would say the question could become even bigger than that. What should he daven for them? They shouldn't get killed. That doesn't make sense. I mean, they were Malaya Chomas. They was completely full of corruption. And to daven, they should do tshuva. So Taka should have daven Taka. And it's interesting also, the name Neach is also, he was given the name Neach because he invented the plowing equipment and also the curse that Hashem cursed the earth because of Chet Eitz and because of Cain killing Hevel, became much less. You see, the curse wasn't so strong, it became So that he brought Noach, he brought comfort to the world. And it's called also in the Zeh said on the other just before said Menach, we blaming him. Then Meach Neichel Elienim and Neichel Tachtenim. He brought pleasure to in the heavens and pleasure down here. By destroying negativity, it's good down here that people are not suffering anymore. You could say in Pshat. Neichel Elienim laying in heaven, there's not people who are sinning. That means that upsetting the Eibishter. So again, we are going back to the principle that Eibishter created the world, and he knew everything is going to happen. So it came the Mabul, after the Mabul, when Noach brought a Korban, he's giving an oath to Eibishter, he's not going to make another Mabul. Why not? If it will happen the same thing, then we'll bring another Mabul. Why not? If it's not going to be as bad as God, you don't need a Mabul. But in the time of Noach, already there was the flood from the Oceanus, the sea came up and destroyed a third of the world, and the people didn't learn of that. So when it wasn't so bad, he destroyed a third of the world. When it was very bad, he destroyed the whole world by the Floge, by the Tower of Babel. It was not so bad. He did not destroy them, he just spread them. But why is he making a promise that he's not going to destroy them again? If he'll need. And if you could make a promise, why didn't he make a promise? And he created the world, make a promise, you'll never destroy the world and just give it. If you could manage it without destroying the world, I'm sure he would have. So why? So he's saying in the beginning, it's going to be destroy the world, and then he's changing it. And interesting, the logic why to destroying the world was the same logic. Why not destroying the world? Why destroy the world? Because people are bad from beginning. Their heart is full of bad. That's why I'm going to destroy them. Then he's saying, I will not do it because Leiv Ha'adam Ra Min Urav, because they are bad from when they were being born. So the same logic why, because they are bad, completely bad from the beginning. Therefore, he wants to destroy the world. And then he's saying, because they are bad, so what could you expect from them? Many Mepharshim said, what could you expect from them? But listen, they are bad, so anything good you could get out from them is good. So why Hashem didn't know that, but that's what he will think after the Mabul, that they are bad, so nothing we could do. Whatever you could get out from them, you should get out from them. And I would say the better question is, why didn't Hashem skip the first 10 generations? Why create a world that had the potential to become so corrupt that you have to destroy the world? Start with the world from with Noach after the Mabul. And to avoid that kind of terrible destruction of everything, of the whole world. So, what did we gain from the whole thing? And also, Hashem said he's giving a keshet, a rainbow, as a sign that he's not going to destroy the world. A rainbow is a natural thing. When you have water spraying, even you do in your garden, put the water spraying in the sun, you'll have a rainbow in the water. So what means he gave them a rainbow as a sign? Why a rainbow as a sign? And rainbow is a natural thing. How is that connected to not to destroy the world? So the answer on that, but that's making the question, that initially the world was a coarser world, a thicker world, much coarser world. Therefore, it was be able to. Therefore, they didn't have a rainbow before. Even the water was much more coarser. That's why we're not allowed to eat animal. After the Mabul not only was killed them, but made a more refined world. And after that, the elements of the world became a little bit more refined, right? And therefore, they were able to. It was a rainbow. And therefore, they were allowed to eat meat. So the question comes again: what does the Eibishter want here with the whole story? Right, and And why are we telling us that Noach got chiker? I mean, he lived for 350 years after that. He's not telling anything, just the idea that he got chiker. So again, we have to go to the principle of the understanding of what's happening, remembering that the Eibishter is the essence of goodness. And he knew that's how the world is going to be, and he could have stopped it, could have not created it. He said that's what's going to happen. He gave us free choice, fantastic. But he saw what is going to happen, right? So if you're opening a school and you're giving the kids free choice and you know what's going to happen, they're going to kill each other. So if you're a normal person, do not announce, send an emergency message before you open the school. This school is not opening. If you know for sure what's going to happen, so the Rabbi knew for sure what's going to happen. Just want to bring in a little bit of, maybe in a lighter note. Noach built the Teva 120 years. What happened? One of the reasons why Hashem wanted him to build it, the reason it took him so many years because he wasn't allowed to get anybody to help him. Not going to the halachic, but that what comes out. The Rebbe told him to build it, he had to build it himself. So it takes a lot of years to build different support system in how to be able to hold all these kind of things. But when somebody came over to him, one of the purposes of him building the Teva wasn't only to save him, the Rebbe was saying, maybe people came to ask him, Noach, what you building this big contraption here? So he told them, the Rebbe is not happy with what's happening here. And he's going to destroy the world. And he told me to build a Teva that the people will be fine, whoever will be saved. So he told them what's going to happen. Hashem wasn't keeping it a secret. And he gave them a real opportunity to do tshuva, if he was simply what he wanted to say. But it looks like it didn't help, it didn't work. But the simple pshat I'm saying. Some say that they did do tshuva, didn't do enough tshuva. So they didn't do tshuva. So but Bavrom, but we're not going to topic in Bavrom, that he gave them people to eat and to sleep, and he gave them all the everything. Avram was very wealthy. That they say that the genes of most Jews, they want to be rich, and he gives tzedakah because we're coming from Avram Avinu, that he was very wealthy and he was feeding tens of thousands of people in the desert with the best luxury, best kind of food. And he made Baalei Tshuva. He was Megayer Anoshim. According to some Meforshim, the majority of the world he was converted to believe in the Eibishter. So Noach was telling them about the punishment didn't help. Avram was giving them eat and drink, and he explained them also about the Eibishter, but everything in a positive way. He had a stick also. He had a carrot, but he had a stick also. It says if you don't want a bench, then you have to pay, and you have to pay grob. So in other words, what we must understand that the Rebbe didn't know everything that's going to happen, and he could have changed it easily before we created in the DNA of that. He could have changed it, and he didn't want to change it. And that why he didn't want to change it, why he didn't change it. In other words, ultimately, the best system is the way it was. There's an interesting explanation of the Rebbe in the Makkos that Hashem brought to Mitzrayim, but you kind of talking about destruction. So there was each was say 50 Makkos, and one opinion says each plague was from 4 Makkos. It means altogether it says well, there was 200 Makkos. And another opinion says that each one was from 5 Makkos. So therefore 50 times 5 is 250. In other words, there was 10 Makkos, but each Makkah, right, had many details to a point that ultimately the minimum what you're talking about is that it had 200 Makkos, or according to one opinion, even 250 Makkos. So the question is, what is the point? He's saying 200 Makkos, and each one brings a rai from the pasuk also, the same pasuk. Well, what you're counting? What's the difference if it's 10 Makkos, if it's 50 Makkos, if it's 200 Makkos, if it's 250 Makkos? Each Makkah is from 4 or from 5. The Rebbe explains very interesting, and that's explaining us a little bit about the marble that when there is something bad, could be the final product is bad. let's say a person builds a table, a crooked table. So the final product is a bad table. So what do? You take it apart and you try to build it properly now. But the wood could be a good quality of wood. And the nails were good quality of nails. Everything that you used to build it was good quality. So now in everything in the world, it has 4 elements: fire, water, air, and earth. Right? So when the Mitzrayim were bad, the question is, were they bad as a final product, what they were put together from all the 4 elements? As the Egyptian, they were bad. Or even each element in each person in the country was bad. That even if you take them to be separated to the 4 elements, fire, water, air, and earth, separate them to these 4 elements, is the 4 elements good or bad? So the opinion that says that every market for 4 markets, he's saying that the Egyptian was so deeply bad that even if you take them apart, each element was bad. So therefore, the market wasn't good enough just to kill the Egyptian. It had to have, each market had to be from 4 markets. Each market had to destroy the elements, the 4 elements of that they have in themselves. So because if you destroy the final product, but the elements remain bad, then somebody will come. If the wood is a rotten wood, you put it back together, it'll still be a bad product. That's why the opinion is that each market was from 4 markets. The other opinion is that no, each market was from 5 markets. Why? Because beyond the 4 elements, 4 Yeseides, as we're saying, Arba Yeseides, Eish, Maim, Ruach, Ofor, fire, water, wind, air, and sand. So, but in Egypt, the bad penetrated so deep that the elements were bad. So you couldn't just destroy them, separate them to 4 elements, and then put the elements together because the elements are bad. You had to destroy the elements. But there's something deeper than the elements. It's called the Keach HaYuli, the potential of existence. We call it the essence of existence. There's not even elements yet. The question, if that essence of the existence, what's called Yuli in philosophy, in Chassidus, I mean, the potential for that thing to be, there's no fire, water, air, and earth yet. There's something, just the potential of it, much more. Was that bad or not? So the opinion said that every market was from 4 markets. Hold that wasn't bad. The Yuli wasn't bad, therefore it needed to. But the opinion is that each market from 5 markets, because the essence was bad and had to be destroyed. Even the Yuli also in Mitzrayim had to be destroyed. And therefore each market was from 5 markets. So basically coming back to the marble, right? And it says we came out Elam Chodesh, right? So a new world. What would we lose if we would skip the first 10 generations? Start with Noach. Even that would be very, very bad. They still made it. Chom sinned against his father. Noach got chicken. It was a wrong act. The Tower of Babel was still bad. And then there was Dame. There was still plenty of bad. And then in Mitzrayim. So the idea, basically, what we have to understand is negative comes from a very high source. The source of it, just like the source of why could we eat? How could we get sustenance from physical food? If you're a person, you're much higher than Daimon Tzemeach Chai, how could the Daimon Tzemeach Chai give you life, keep your life? So the explanation is given as Kol HaGovea B'Yeser Yered Lamato Yeser. The idea is that the higher the source is, the lower it falls out. It manifests so that Esau, that's why Esau was the B'chor, higher than Yankov. In Kabbalistic terms, Teyu, Elamateu, that the Sheresh of Klippos is higher than Tikkun. So Yankov is from Tikkun, Esau is from Teyu. So the source of physical, to the point that the physical world, it was the lowest world, his Sheresh, his root, has a higher care than in the spiritual world. In the word of Tanya, what he's saying is, as hu levade bekeche v'yicholti lahabesh yesh me'ayin. The only one that could create yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, only atzmus, only the essence of the all revelation of godliness, elam atzilus and higher, without the power of etzem, it doesn't have the power of creation. But we're not going to the explanation of why, but the Alter explains it, that the revelation of godliness, the highest revelation of godliness, cannot create, doesn't have the power of creation. Only, so in other words, in the physical world, you have something higher than in the spiritual world, and that's why we are sent here to get to that. So now, if the Eibishter would have created the world in a better way, that means that he did not experience the idea of kol hagovea b'yesa yered lemata, that the higher the source goes into the lowest, lower than there's nothing lower than that. You have to get to that, and then that will transform that into positive. So if we will start to transforming a level of bad, but not the lowest level of negativity, so then we're not going to reveal that level of godliness that was necessary, highest level of God that needed to create the lowest level of negativity. That's number one. So again, so what we are saying is that the whole reason of the creation, right? The Eibishter is the essence of goodness, is to come to the idea of Mashiach. Let me ask, what means Mashiach? Mashiach means right? I've removed it, but then more that he'll be transformed everything to positive. So therefore, the Rebbe did not, I would say, almost a way knew the plan, and it's going to be careful to say the word. He wanted that to happen that way, because if he didn't want it, he would have avoided it. He could avoid it. He knew what's going to happen. And as I said, it started creation with a stage later. Because ultimately, we are going to making a dire, as Alter said, dire betachtenim, a dwelling place for the Eibishter, and reveal in the Tachten. But he said, watch Tachten. Tachten, she'ein Tachten lamata imena. Into the lowest level, there cannot be anything lower. So when you're looking on the whole idea of so Hashem created a perfect world initially, right? Adam Rishon was in Gan Eden, was a perfect world. Why that? In order that the essence of the world is good. And the Rebbe compares it to an interesting idea. It says that Shatinik b'mei imei, right? When the fetus is in the womb of the mother. So it's neir dolok al reishe, there's a candle burning on his head. That's why maybe the mother has a heart burns. Just a joke. I'm happy taking it serious. And melamdim is it kol ha-Torah kula, and we teach him the whole Torah. So in the womb, the child learns the whole Torah, and then says, and he's born Sotre al Ponav. I don't know where they're coming the idea of this thing here, but in English it says Sotre al Ponav. It makes him forget, and now I have to start from the beginning. Now halachically, it's forbidden to forget Torah. Number one. So here we are. Okay, he's not doing it himself. The Malach is doing it to him. But why do something that in essence is wrong? And second thing is, the main question is, if you're going to make him forget the Torah, why are you teaching him the whole Torah in the first place? So the explanation the Rabbi is giving, that the child, the essence of the person, his Torah is his first nature. And then the idea of the negativity that comes out is the idea of second nature. So therefore, when we are talking about this, when talking about destruction, it's not just a destruction. Like it says that the water was for 40 days and was like the 40 saw of a mikveh, was to metar, to purify. In other words, you're taking the ra and you're going deeper than the keach hayuli even, as we said before, not only the 4 elements, but you're going even deeper. The keach hayuli was bad. You're destroying that. But when you're destroying, it doesn't disappear. Nothing disappears. You're coming to a deeper level of the existence of the idea of that aspect, and then you transform that into positive. So therefore, once we approach that in that understanding, that everything is designed, the world was created for Eden and for Torah. That in order we should accomplish, reveal the deepest level of Torah, and the Jewish people should reach the highest level. And therefore, ultimately the Creator is only the Eibishter. And the Klippe cannot go really in the absolute essence. It cannot oppose the essence. It says Zelo Umazeh. In Klippe, there's always a level against positive, but only in the level of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya. But against Yechideh, there's no Klippe. There's cave with Neodim, something similar, but there's no. So the idea is to reveal the essence of the Eibishter, to reveal the essence of the Jew. If you're not giving him the ultimate challenge, he'll reveal very deep levels of the Neshama, but you're not going to reveal a deeper level that's there. What is the deeper level? The absolute essence of the Eibishter and the essence of the Neshama of the Jew. That is one with the Eibishter. Chelek Elkam Imal Mamash. Then you have to reach that you have to. In order, you have to reveal that he has to, almost like saying in a certain way, say, fail in every level in order to go to a higher level. You come to a level, either you're successful in that level and you go, or you fail in that level, but that takes you even into a lower level, right? And then that is the revealing of the essence of the Eibishter. That's what we're saying. Not only that the Eibishter was happy that he destroyed the Reshoim and it was quiet here down here in this world, wasn't so quiet. No, there's a nachas ruach l'Kadosh Baruch Hu. Because that revealed a deeper level, I would say, in the collective subconsciousness of the world. And especially it came out in Noach, and then mainly in Shem. And then was able to come to the idea of Avraham Avinu. And that's why Noach couldn't daven for them, not only because he was lazy to daven for them, because at that time, that was necessary. Let's say we'll daven to make them to become Balei Tshuva. Doesn't mean they're transforming really, according to some portion, they did Tshuva, but they didn't do enough Tshuva. It's not good enough to transform the absolute darkness into light. And that's what it says in the Chumash, but we know that a person cannot complain, I'm very deeply have negative inclination. All that was destroyed already. And therefore that is, every generation went to a deeper level and a deeper level from the previous generation. So in conclusion, what we are saying is that even that whole idea of modern Mauritius, what we spoke last week, and this week we're talking about the Mabel, the destruction of the whole world, and then the Tower of Babel. It's all part, it's a Yerid, it's a Chaliyah. And then it said the descent for the sake of an ascent. And then it says, Yerid is a chelek of the leg, just like in Hilchas Shabbos. Seiser al Menasem, somebody breaks down something in order to build, is transgressing building. So some destructions are absolutely necessary in order to grow up, so it becomes a chelek of the aliyah. So for us is to look on that being of the Mabul who destroys everything negative in us, and therefore be able to get to our etzem neshama, to etzem connection with the Eibishter, right? And from that bring it out into the other stages in our life. Hatzlacha Rabbi Mufloga, good Chedesh, good Yo, Kol Tuv. Thank you.